Welcome to the wrap-up presented by Allstate. I'm Skubie Mageza alongside my boy, Sam Ravech. We really appreciate y'all for tuning in because, as you know, it has been a wild day of college football.
Still is.
Week 10 has gotten off to a great start, and this late-night slate is even crazier. So for everybody out in the YouTube channel, we are keeping an eye on the YouTube chat and the comments or anything. So holla at us, say whatever, and we'll definitely address it as the show goes along. And there's a number of different things we'll be touching on in the show. All the highlights from the Alabama game, from the FSU game, plenty more. USC, Washington, we know what's going on, but I just mentioned the Alabama game, so let's check it out real quick because that's just wrapping up as we speak, and you see it. 42-28.
Look how small we had to make the text to fit in all the numbers for Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe.
Now, Jaden Daniels did get injured in this game late in the fourth quarter, and he was in the concussion protocol. But he had already put up historic numbers, Sam. And Jalen Milroe had a career game, the best game that he's played in his young collegiate career. And Alabama, they're back.
Alabama is all the way back. And I think a lot of people are going to take them as a favorite to not only go, undefeated the rest of the way, but also take down Georgia in the SEC title game. I think a lot of people are thinking that, even with the way that we saw Georgia play today against Missouri, which was the most impressive win of the day. But the way that Alabama's playing and the way that we saw Jalen Milroe play in this game, the confidence that he brought to the table, that was the Jalen Milroe that everyone was like, okay, now we go.
I think what Alabama did today was unleash. They released Jalen Milroe. We haven't seen them use him in the QB run game as often as they did tonight. We saw him truck dudes and put his shoulder down multiple times. And not only that, you got to think when you get your quarterback involved in the run game, I've said this every single week, you have an extra blocker. Because when you hand it off to your running back, that quarterback is sitting back there and he's not helping block within the run game. But when you give your quarterback the ball to be able to run, you're getting that extra blocker with everybody there, and it had made a difference. And he was throwing the ball well, accounted for over 6 touchdowns in this game. It was something else.
4 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, he's the 6th SEC quarterback to rush for 4 or more touchdowns in a conference game in the last 20 years. We could list off stats here, but I know many of you guys who are watching the game at home were like, this looks like a little bit of a different Jalen Milroe, certainly than what we saw against Texas. Certainly what we saw against, some of the other teams that they played earlier on in the season. This is the Jalen Milroe that they want and that Nick Saban and Tommy Rees drew up or at least shifted this offense to look like. Now they're playing in his system, and it's working.
Yeah. First SEC conference game where both of the quarterbacks in the last 25 years have gone over 125 yards. And I'm sure the stats and the record breaking is going to continue pouring in now that this game is over. Let's take a look at all the other results around college football. And we saw Ohio State beat Rutgers, but do not let that score fool you. They struggled. And quite frankly, all the top teams struggled because Oklahoma got upset by Oklahoma State in the final. Bedlam, and then Oregon rolled 63-19. Florida State struggled a little bit there, Sam.
They sure did.
But they were able to beat Pitt. You called that, though. You said
I said it would be tough.
They would be struggling in that.
Yeah, and that was just kind of a sleeper. And, remember, this is a Pitt team that also beat Louisville earlier in the year and handed them their only loss of the season. But, a lot of the top teams struggled, started off a little bit slow, and eventually came around to win, except for Oklahoma.
Yeah, definitely a lot of great games that happened today. And the great game of the day is the late one, Washington versus USC. So let's show you the highlight, because this game is still in action. Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, they're going at each other. We pick it up in the second. Washington down 7. Penix, check this out. This is why he's such a good quarterback. Fights off the defender on the sack, and this is on a rope. The ball literally just
crazy.
glides there to Devin Culp, and he's in for
That
6.
should not happen. Should not happen, but yet it does.
Yeah. After a USC touchdown, Dylan Johnson, you brought him up to me earlier.
Yeah.
A whole lot of rushing yards today, Sam. 52 yards here.
He gained 197 yards. Of those 244 yards that he rushed for, 197 of were untouched. Untouched.
What? All right. Back come the Trojans. This wild flea flicker by Caleb Williams to Taj Washington after Zach Branch tosses it to him. Did they do this on purpose?
I don't think so. I think this is improvised, Scoob. I think it's improvised.
We're just playing football. Third quarter. Williams doing some backyard football stuff. Fakes a handoff. Let me just roll around here and toss it down to Brendan Rice. Another one. USC ties it up at 35. After another Washington touchdown, Williams still on the money. Right in the end zone there to Mario Williams. A lot of scoring. They tied it at 42 there. Fourth quarter, Washington up 3. Dylan Johnson from 1 yard out. Fights in there. USC up 52 to 42. Washington is up 52 to 42. Excuse me. There's a minute and 7 seconds left in this game. And Sam, the over-under was 75.
Right.
And then at halftime, it was over 100. Yeah, let's just say they put up some points.
They put up some points. I'll tell you what impressed me most about Washington. It wasn't necessarily what Michael Penix Jr. did. It was the utilization of the run game. Now, USC, we know, is one of the worst tackling teams in the entire country. But for Dylan Johnson to go for 256 yards, it's the most rushing yards since Chris Polk, since 2010, I believe he was running around Seattle. Like, that's how good this Washington team can be. I don't know, take it with a grain of salt, too, because you're playing USC, but it looks like Washington is going to remain undefeated, Scoob. And as far as what that does for their college football playoff rankings and implications, I don't know, to be determined. We'll talk more about that later on the show.
Yeah, we were going to try paint a path, because there was a path for USC had they won this game. Just to be straight up with y'all, we have the game up in the studio right now, and USC did not convert on a 4th and 4 with a minute and 2 left. Washington is now getting the ball. This game
over.
is just about wrapped up. And there was a lot of NFL eyes at this game, Sam. Pete Thamel tweeted earlier on that there was 21 scouts from 15 credentialed teams, including the GMs from the Broncos and the Giants. If you were looking for an offensive player, you saw a lot of
found one that you liked.
Offensive firepower in this game.
Yeah.
So Washington is going to hold on and get this huge win. Now, we know that Michigan was also playing not as much of an exciting game as they took on Purdue, but let's show you the highlight. Michigan hosting Purdue, and we'll start this game in the first quarter. No score. Blake Corum from 3 yards out is just straight up money.
Yeah, they did this a couple of times today. They would get down to the 5-yard line, and then, Roman Wilson's like, hey, what about me? Show me some love. Nope, Blake Corum's getting all of it.
This is later in the first. Ditto. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Corum from like 3 yards out. Michigan leads 14-0, third quarter. They lead 20-6. Samaje Morgan says, bye-bye. What's this music we have here?
I like it.
44 yards for the touchdown. Michigan up 27-6. They go on to win this one 41-6. Excuse me. Blake Corum, like I said, all he did was just take carries within the red zone and score. Yeah. J.J. McCarthy did not throw for a passing touchdown in this game, but
335 yards still, which was, pretty impressive. I think what jumped off the page in this one is Michigan had 5 rushing touchdowns in the game.
Yeah.
But they only rushed for 110 yards. So it's like, what?
Now, okay. So how do we feel about Michigan performing this way off the bye, especially with all the noise from outside that was coming in with the sign stealing? What's our take on them now? Because we know what they're going to be looking ahead towards next week.
I'm torn. Yes, they go to Penn State next week. I'm torn here because I feel like we have kind of talked about this thing for the last couple of weeks, seemingly, about Michigan and the sign stealing allegations. And let's be honest, where there's smoke, there's fire. And this is probably one of the best Michigan teams on the field that they've maybe ever had. It's like a double-edged sword because they're so fun to watch, Scooby. Like, they're so fun to watch, and they very well could win a national title this year. I don't know. The Big Ten commissioner could step in and maybe issue a suspension to Jim Harbaugh, but I don't see anything more happening than that.
As I said at the top of the show, we are keeping an eye on the YouTube chat. D-Rob, I see you. He said Michigan plays no one. It's a 2-7 opponent. D-Rob.
D-Rod's right. They haven't
lying,
played.
My boy.
They haven't played anybody. They will, though. They will.
You ain't lying, but there is a metric that they tend to look at with these analytics called game control, and Michigan is the most dominant team in the entire season. Now, if you barely go against people, they can match it up and say, all right, were you in control? How are you compared to other teams that would have gone against this same caliber of team?
Yeah.
Michigan is at the top of that list. But now we know it's going to change next week when they see Penn State.
Yeah.
And that game is going to have some huge Big Ten implications because, hey, if Penn State wins that, they're back in it too.
Then chaos ensues. But, yeah, I think the only thing I really need to see for Michigan is, like, how did they play against Penn State? That's obviously the toughest competition they've played to date. It's not like Penn State is the best team in the country. They're certainly not the best team in the Big Ten. But, I think we only need to see how Michigan plays against Penn State. If they go on the road and they dismantle a pretty good Penn State team, I think we have our questions answered.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of chatter about what happens with Michigan because we're all saying, can you play somebody that's real, all right? Play somebody that's good. A team that has played somebody that's real is Florida State. And today they took on Pitt. No Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson for them today.
Nope.
Both of them out, so Jordan Travis had to do it by himself.
And boy, did he.
Yeah, they were struggling early on.
Yeah.
We're starting the second. Pitt on the move. Christian Vier hits Bub Means for the touchdown. Bubba gets in there for 7. Third quarter now. FSU up 10-7. Jordan Travis. I told y'all he had to do it by himself in this game, and he sure did. Hits Marcuston Douglas. Wide open. Florida extends their lead to 10. Later in the third, they had to get their running game going.
They really did. And Trey Benson kind of carried the mantle all the way. We were waiting for him to break off a big run. That was a big, big run and a crucial time, too.
Yeah, the Seminoles are returning to the ACC title game for the first time in nearly a decade with a 24-7 win against Pitt. As I mentioned, Jordan Travis having to do it without his top wide receivers. He still threw for 360 yards and had 2 touchdowns on the day with no turnovers. They get Trey Benson to rush for 97 yards, the most that he's had ever since he rushed for 200 early on in the season. But Pitt had them struggling a little bit, Sam, and you saw this game as a spot for them to struggle against them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I said it earlier. Let's not forget that Pitt handed a very good Louisville team their only loss of the season, and what a season that would have been if Louisville would have just been able to beat Pitt. But, I'd like to go back to Jordan Travis, too, Scoob, because we were just talking about, some of the Heisman quarterbacks in contention. How come he's not more...
Respect the man.
How come he's not in the conversation more with what he's done?
I like you brought that up. Florida State, in general, hasn't gotten that much respect. We saw in the first release of the college football playoff, they're 4th, but yet they had a better resume than number 2 and number 3, that being Georgia and that being Michigan. 2 top 25 wins. Yes, they did struggle today, but Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman, that quarterback wide receiver tandem, is one of the best in the country. They did struggle today, did not look that good, but as I mentioned, he did not have his top weapons. But we brought up Louisville, Pitt having beat Louisville. Louisville ended up winning it. They beat Virginia Tech.
Sure did.
They were tied for second place within the ACC. And right now, they're on a fast track to clash with FSU in the ACC title game. How do we feel about FSU's chances against the Cardinals?
I think for some folks who have not seen Louisville play this year, highly recommend that you do. This is a dominant defense. They have been the last 2 weeks. Remember, they shut out Duke. Last week, they held Virginia Tech to just 3 points in the game earlier today. This is the second best rushing defense in the in the ACC, I should say. Louisville is. They're holding their opponents to about 92 points or 92 rush yards per game. This Florida State team, as we have just documented, have not run the ball great.
They really
only rely on Trey Benson to run the ball. So that if they can make Florida State a one-dimensional team, and who knows who's healthy on the outsides for Florida State, because they've had some injury problems in that wide receiver room, it could become a game. But Louisville has to be able to do that, make Florida State one-dimensional, and I think they can do that.
Yeah. Louisville, 140 yards allowed. That marked a season low and the 5th consecutive game for the Cardinals where they held an opponent to below 300 yards. Now, Coach Mike Norvell spoke after the win for his squad, and this is what he had to say.
I don't talk about a whole lot of things in front, but one thing I did mention to the team is that if we took care of business today, we guaranteed ourselves another opportunity to be together. And for this team and this year, and by that win, you'll clinch the a spot in the ACC championship game.
All right, time now for the Allstate Playoff Predictor presented by Allstate, where we look at teams just outside looking in following the first reveal of the CFP rankings. And you see the teams from 9 to 5. And as I said, I'm looking within the chat and I see someone that just said, Texas wins out. Do they get in the playoff? We're about to talk about that. Starting at number 9, we see that Oklahoma had a 28% chance entering today. These are all the numbers entering today and has not been updated. We saw Oklahoma get upset, so boom, they're out of the conversation.
Yeah,
so I'm not even going to talk about them. So let's start at number 8, Sam. 29% chance. Alabama, they just got that win against LSU. What is their chance to get into the playoffs for you?
Right, so let's remember, too, this is an Alabama team who have wins over Tennessee, win over LSU now, and a win over Ole Miss. Those are all ranked wins. Now, the rest of the way in the regular season for Alabama is against Kentucky, Chattanooga, and then the Iron Bowl against Auburn. That could be a sneaky one, but let's say Alabama does win out. They're 11-1 when they get to the SEC title game against maybe Georgia, and they win that game. I just don't see how you keep Alabama out.
Yeah, it is going to get spicy. Bama is playing better and better every single week, and what they lacked is a quarterback. That defense has still been dominant. That offensive line still has an immense amount of talent. And Jalen Milroe was a big reason why they got a lot of those sacks early on in the season. They have figured it out, as we said at the top of the show, with the quarterback run game. He's gotten more confident throwing the ball. And as he uses his legs more, that's just going to open things up down the field. Now, I said in the chat, you asked if Texas wins out, do they have a great chance? The Allstate Playoff Predictor gives them a 26% chance to make the CFP. They do have the best win in the country. As Steve Sarkisian has mentioned many times, you go into Tuscaloosa and get a win against Alabama, you're going to be flashing that thing like a flag to the College Football Playoff Committee and say, let us in. What do we think about their chances?
Yeah, well, there's nobody rooting more for Alabama than Texas is the rest of the way. Texas has TCU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech remaining on their regular season schedule. They're going to be favored heavily in those games. But remember, there were some hiccups earlier in the season. Remember that Wyoming game that was really close? They didn't play all that well against Houston as well a couple of weeks ago. So, certainly there are some questions surrounding this Texas team and absolutely questions about their red zone touchdown efficiency numbers. Those have been suspect. They're one of the worst red zone completion teams in the entire country. Having said all of that, the road is certainly there. They have taken care of business, beating Alabama on the road, like you said, Scoob. So they control their own destiny, I think. And I don't know, they win the Big 12 title. They take down whoever it is, Oklahoma or another team in there. I don't know.
As Texas, you were cheering for Oklahoma, and all they've done is disappoint you the last couple of weeks. Now, as I said, I'm looking in the YouTube chat, and someone said that Oregon is going to stay at 6. And Oregon looked dominant. They've been one of the most dominant teams in the entire country. 63-19. They are doing exactly what we say when it comes down to this point of the season. It's not just if you win. It's about how you win. And they showed us how dominant they are. 28% chance to make the CFP. How do we feel about their chances to get in and move up possibly on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't scored less than 33 points in a game this year. That's how good Oregon has been. Remember, they scored 81 points in their opener against Portland State, and then they just put up a 63 spot against Cal earlier tonight. So, yeah, they have USC next week. Then they have Arizona State. And then they finish up at home against Oregon State. So there's a couple more ranked matchups along the way. If they keep playing the way that they have been, when they went into Salt Lake City and beat up on Utah the way they did last week, I don't know. It's hard not to even make a case that Oregon is like the hottest team, maybe the best team in the country right now.
And that's what the YouTube chat is saying. I see y'all. Oregon is legit. That message just came in. It is so true. Quite frankly, I think Oregon, had they not lost to Washington, they're the number 1 team in the country. Now, we saw them basically give that game to Washington.
Yep.
But a win is a win. And I got to respect the fact that Washington got that win. So, number 5 is Washington. Washington just got their win against USC. What a barn burner. What a shootout. But the thing about Washington that's been a worry, and Boo Carrington said it on the ranking show with Reese Davis earlier this week, that they've struggled the last 2 games, and their defense has not looked playoff caliber.
No.
21% chance to make the playoff. They have the least percentage out of all the teams that we just talked about.
Which is amazing to me.
So how do we feel about their chance to make it?
I don't necessarily understand the percentage points, because you talk about a team that holds their destiny in their own 2 hands, Washington, right? I mean, they have a tough schedule coming up. I think they got Utah on the schedule. They play Oregon State, and then they finish with Washington State at home as well. Those are their 3 remaining games. I don't know. You're right. The defense is certainly of a question mark. The Arizona State game, I know Michael Penix Jr. has been fighting with the flu the last couple of weeks. He certainly looked okay tonight. So I think if he continues to play the way that he did tonight against those teams that have good defenses like Utah and like even in Oregon State, they can.
Someone just said Oregon State is better than Oregon. Oregon State is the giant killer. I don't know, man. Come back to the show some weeks from now when we talk about that game. Those 2 teams.
Oregon State's struggling with Colorado right now, so I don't know.
Are you willing to put your chips in for that one? That they haven't finished their game up yet? I love the activity going on in the chat, but I think it's safe to say that the chase for these teams to get into the top 10 or the CFP is on.
This is what we train for. This is what we work for.
Put the world on notice who you are. A sense of redemption right here.
We have for one purpose. I gotta have it. I need it.
How about that?
Touchdown!
On top of the mountain.
What can't he do?
That's what we praying for right here.
What an impressive win. Now, the stakes get much higher.
All right, y'all know what time it is. Saturday Shoutouts ain't leave. It's here. It's back.
Yep.
We get to give you all the updates and a look back at some of the best things that happened on this here dope Saturday.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and start off with the best catch. And this is coming from Trey Harris of Ole Miss with this sick one-handed grab. Check it out, Sam.
Oh, this is the catch of the year. I think this is the catch of the year. You want to talk about impact transfers and what Trey Harris has provided for this Ole Miss team? It has been unmatched. Give him the and 1, too. See the flag in the background.
Oh, my goodness. And the way that he just holds on to it with one hand the whole time.
Special.
That's different. Big hands, big gloves. All right, we're going to Best Tribute. The Vols honor the late Pat Summitt with jerseys for Alzheimer's Awareness Month.
Yeah.
The Volunteers wore Summitt blue as a tribute to the Lady Vols coach. This is the 2nd season the Vols have worn the Summitt blue, and it was to honor Coach Summitt's legacy of the 50th anniversary of Title IX.
Yeah, super awesome for somebody who calls women's college basketball coverage. Really cool to see what Pat Summitt has done, obviously, and what Tennessee is doing to honor her 8 championships, and she's done so much else as well.
All right, from something that was honorable to something that's dishonorable, the cheapest shot. You can't do this, Shamar Moore. This is not the WWE.
Easy. I don't think you can do it in the WWE either, Scoop.
I saw Ric Flair do it quite a bit, you know what I mean? Like, as soon as the referee turned around, you got him with the But he was ejected for that. Texas A&M ended up losing this game 38-35. Now, the best move. Y'all saw this wild game. Caleb Williams
Where's he going?
Was out here like a video game player. Circle button.
We always say he tries to do too much, but then when we say he does too much, he does something like this. It's like, pick your poison.
And that's not it from this game because there's more. Check this out. We got our best play. Williams hands the ball off, but they run a little weird back and forth flea flicker as Williams hits Zachariah Branch.
Wow.
When he tosses it back to him, he hits Taj Washington, for the touchdown there. What a play design. It almost looks like
I
they didn't do this on purpose.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I mean, I'd be interested to ask him after the game, but that looked pretty improvised there.
Yeah, definitely a game that lived up to all the hype and more.
Yeah.
Turning into like a little bit of a rivalry in the Pac-12.
Sure is.
But we saw another rivalry today between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Bedlam, the last time, supposedly, right, that we could see this rivalry, and we're going to call this one our biggest statement as they got the upset. Hey, full-time fans, time for overtime brought to you by Modelo. And if you're a true football fan, you know that the NFL trade deadline was this week.
Yep.
So as we were prepping for the show, we said, wouldn't it be fun if we had a college football trade deadline? So we're going to toss out a couple of scenarios to y'all for these imaginary trades. And just tell us if they make sense or not, or if they would make these teams better, because we know that they would like to make this happen. How about Marvin Harrison Jr.
Where's
to
he going?
USC paired with Caleb Williams? A possible pairing of these two in the NFL if the Bears can make that happen, Sam?
That would be interesting, right? Look, I like it. We saw today Marvin Harrison Jr. had 2 catches, I think, going into the fourth quarter, something ridiculous like that.
I don't know why.
And remember, he played high school ball with his quarterback, Kyle McCord. Now, Caleb Williams has a special knack of just finding receivers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is easy to find.
Yeah,
so
he's a type of receiver where you just look down there and say, I know he there.
Yeah.
I might see more jerseys for the other team, but we towing it up to my boy. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Caleb to be paired with USC. It's a great trade.
It's a good pairing. Yeah.
Get that in before the trade deadline.
The deadline.
All right, let's go on to our next trade. Iowa's 2 championships for any QB that is kind of good, because that offense is abysmal. Now, a little fun fact, Iowa has 5 total national championships, but 2 of them were in 1921
a little early.
and 1922. And it's basically claimed as national championship.
Self-claimed,
so if I'm Iowa, am I making this trade, Sam?
I mean, those trophies are kind of old, but I don't know necessarily that the quarterback is the only problem that they have. They've got a couple of problems on offense. It's hard not to at least take a little bit of pleasure when you watch Iowa play, because they've kind of done it to themselves at times. And Scoob, you're very familiar with the Iowa football fans.
Shout out to my people out of Iowa.
I kind of compare them to like the beleaguered Mets fans that just, you expect what you expect and you get what you get, and this is it. But yet they still win games, so I don't know.
Hey, chat, send us some trades that you like in here, too. One of them that they just said, they said Texas trades Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning for Caleb Williams.
2 for 1?
2 for 1?
That's a 2 for 1?
Hey, Arch Manning is the future. Come on, man. Aren't you supposed to hold on to your boy? All right, the next one. How about Shedeur Sanders' watch? the Shedeur for an offensive line. I don't care how much that watch is worth. Sign me up for that trade if I'm primetime, because as we know, no QB has been sacked and hit in FBS more than Shedeur Sanders. So are you taking this trade, Sam?
Absolutely. There's no price. You can't put a price on the health of one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, and that would be Shedeur Sanders. So, I think he could part with a watch to maybe get a new offensive line. You know, Colorado made a bunch of changes this week, right? Sean Lewis was there were some demotions going on there in Boulder, and you know, I think the offensive line is one of the big problems that they have. No question.
Someone said dub trade in there. Yeah, that's definitely a dub trade. If they had an offensive line, maybe they actually would make a bowl game, because right now we're in a little bit of trouble to do that.
Not looking great.
And then someone else in the Rivs in the chat said he wants Caleb on the Buckeyes instead.
Everyone wants Caleb, huh?
Caleb, right? I guess Caleb he's a great piece to move around. You got to give up some good stuff in return, right? All right, so this next one, Dabo Swinney trades Tyler from Spartanburg to Spartanburg, Indiana, because there's a Spartanburg out there. And if you didn't hear the rant earlier this week,
it was great.
You need to take a listen.
I'm not going to sit here and let you call. I don't give a crap how much money I make. You ain't going to talk to me like I'm 12 years old. What's happened at Clemson is we've won so much. It used to be the fun's in the winning. Now, even when you win, people like you complain and criticize the coaches and question everything. People like you who just love to destroy people with your comments, all right? I'm sure you've never made any bad decisions. I'm sure you've lived a perfect life. I'm sure you've led a bunch of people. So to answer your question, I started as the lowest paid coach in this freaking business, all right? And I'm where I am because I've worked my off every single day. And I ain't going to let some smart kid get on this phone and create this stuff. So if you got a problem with it, I don't care. Is this a bad year? Yeah. And it's my responsibility. Take 100% responsibility for it. But all this bull crap you're thinking, all these narratives you read, listen, man, you can have your opinion all you want. And you can apply for the job. And good luck to you. All right?
I feel like I just got told to go in timeout.
If you dish it out, you better be able to take it. So, you know.
Good win today, Clemson. Good win. Last trade, Washington trades for Will Shipley, because after that, Will's like, I can't be here for all this drama, and Washington wants to take on a running back. But after today, Sam?
Yeah, what about Dylan today?
I might reject this trade. I don't know.
Yeah, they have, Washington, yes, true, had not run the ball great. And again, I'm taking this performance by Dylan today with a grain of salt, because USC, you know, they can't find water unless they fell out of a boat. I mean, it's embarrassing sometimes the way that they try to go after tackles. There was a backyard football game today. Will Shipley also didn't play today, right? I mean, he was in concussion protocol.
Yep.
So we got to keep an eye on the health of some of the players when we're thinking about trades as well. I don't know.
Yeah, and just a couple more looks into this chat. Evan, he said Travis Hunter to FSU, the place that he originally committed to. And I guess Tyler got Dabo to coach better today. That is
there
a
you
good
go.
sign.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler.
Way
good
to
work,
go,
Tyler.
From Spartan, bro. And way to go, everybody that worked on this show to help us put it together for y'all. It takes a lot of work. Shout out to DJ. Shout out to Shelby. Shout out to Angela. And shout out to you.
What about Joe G?
Joe G, too, yeah. All right, that has been the wrap-up presented by Allstate. Y'all have a beautiful rest of the night. Thank you. Peace.